Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Welcome everyone to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone. And today's show, we're going to be talking about how to command your life, simple shifts for profound healing. And I'm joined by Robin Landau. She is a mechanics master teacher, brings 9 years of experience to this advanced intelligent energy system, healing system. She has been trained by the originators and is deeply committed to the Ascension mission and has witnessed the profound, lasting shifts Marconics creates in people's lives. Passionate about elevating global consciousness, Robin supports students and clients in experiencing deeper peace, reconnection, and expansion healing. Welcome, Robin. Thank you for joining me today.
And thank you for having me, of course.
My pleasure. So, today we're going to really talk about, first of all, thank you for coming to the summit. I appreciate you immensely. I know you were a shining light to all. You shared your knowledge and, the beautiful connection that we made. So I appreciate you for coming and being part of this mission of helping the world heal. So today, we spoke briefly offline, and I just wanted to share the work that you do because, again, we're all in it together. We all understand that what we do for each other eventually ripples out to the world. And so, but it all starts with us, right? So I love to really get deeper into the knowledge of how can we command our life and live more authentically so that, we can really reach our true potential and live with more peace, more happiness. So let's get into it because your work is really fascinating and how you have seen yourself use the work that you do, and then you see it with your clients. So let's talk a little bit about what is it? And how does it really help one to really take control of our life back? Because we're running on, 95 miles an hour, right? Every day. We don't stop. So it's so important to really get connected to ourselves and take time for ourselves, right?
Well, it all comes back to that statement in the beginning of your show, be the change you want to see. Right? That's really what it comes down to. And what I have learned, I've been on a spiritual path for most of my life, not even just my adult life. I've known at a very early age that we're powerful beings. I've always been very intuitive, but what I didn't understand is about healthy boundaries. And we're not just talking about the physical boundaries, we're talking about energetic boundaries. And so when we talk about being in the command position, and just to backtrack, so I've been in the healing arts for 36 years as a massage therapist. At some point, I reinvented myself and became an interior designer, and that led me to feng shui because I understood energy. And then in all of that, I found Marconics, which is like the end of my search because this system makes sense. But in feng shui, we talk about, at least the feng shui that I learned, the Black Hat sect, is about being in the command position always, and that our homes are a reflection of our worlds. And so I've learned about how this plays out in everything. And if everything is frequency, right, we have an understanding that everything is frequency, then we can also understand that if there is something bigger than us that's orchestrating, we can't lie to the universe. We can say whatever we want, but it knows frequency, and you can't lie anymore. You can't lie to yourself. And so we talk about, the buzzwords now are about being in integrity and living an authentic life so that we can achieve our own sovereignty. right?
Correct. Right.
So in order to do that, we have to start looking at where we have holes in our fields. Where are we not showing up as our best version of self? Where then we can start, feeling like the victim and start blaming that if only this would happen, then I'd be happy. Or, the world is the way it is because of this, this, and this. And we can feel this great divide, right? This,
Right.
we talked about this at the summit, about this great divide that's happening, and everyone's kind of against each other. And instead of being united, instead of understanding that we're all entitled to our own opinion and there's no one right way to do this, but if we're operating from fear and not from love, it's going to destroy anything that we create.
Right. And we're giving our power away, right? Because essentially we feel like the victims. And so we're saying, you know what, we are a victim of this situation, this circumstance, and I can't do anything about it. So you're surrendering to that circumstance or that, situation, which again makes you feel like, okay, then, where do I get to live a good life if I'm going to be a victim of this situation, right?
But we're not victims, right? It's just as a consequence of our own actions
And decisions.
choices and decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And we now understand in quantum physics that our realities are created by what we put out. The vibration we put out is exactly what we're going to attract back to ourselves. So keeping this model in mind, right? So if we have an understanding of that before we come in for experience, that we choose our characters and our story, right? Our parents, our families, our the big picture. And then of course we live in a free will universe, so we get to choose. But what happened is that we've been on a karma wheel and we have an ego that's out of balance. And the ego only job is to keep you in fear, from keeping you from being your highest potential. Mm-hmm. And the ego doesn't like change. So it will keep you in the pain body because it controls you through fear.
Correct.
And that's why we haven't been in the command position, or another way of saying that, in the driver's seat. The ego has been dictating how we're operating.
Because it's trying to keep you safe.
Well, it's trying to keep you from moving. And yes, you equate it as being safe because of fear. You think something outside of you is going to save you. You think something outside of you is going to make you happy. You think something outside of you. And what we have to learn is how to ground into our own bodies.
Yes.
And we have not been taught that. We've been taught to ground into the earth. Put your feet in the grass, hug a tree, and all that is wonderful, right? We want, the earth can support us in that way, but we have to learn how to ground into the physical body because we're here to have the physical experience. And light workers tend to stay in these upper chakras. And that's where the mind is. And that's also where the ego is. That's out of balance. And so we have to start learning how to pull our energy back in. We're not pulling anything in from outside of ourselves to do this. We're just kind of like a magnet, feel that energy come in. And we do this, at least I do this, and I teach this through the breath. Through the breath, through the inhale and exhalation. And we don't even breathe. As a massage therapist, you know why everyone has so much tension and tightness and knots in the upper shoulders?
We breathe very shallow. Yeah.
We don't know how to breathe. So look at a baby. A baby knows how to breathe innately. An animal, also a sleeping animal, knows how to breathe. It's the stomach distends on the inhale, which we have always been taught, especially women, keep that stomach in. And so we don't let the breath come in, because understand, with oxygen comes, it replenishes the blood. It helps the circulation system. And if you're only breathing here, the lower part of your body is not gaining. And if the lower chakras aren't feeling grounded and safe, then you're never going to trust yourself.
Right. And this is all part of even a healing journey, is to ground yourself, right? And to understand that, okay, do these particular using these particular strategies to come back to your inner self, right? Your that inner, comfort. But before we step into that, because we can really take this off pat, and go into it, and I love it. But let's go back to living authentically, right? So we say, many people might say, well, what does that really mean? What does it really look like in my everyday life? Because it's not just a spiritual thing. It's really doing things that are in alignment with your soul, with your higher self, whatever you want to call it. There's, we have that knowing that if we're not in alignment, if we're not being authentic, there's a little voice that's telling us we're not. It doesn't feel good, right? So what does that look like to you when we say living authentically day to day?
At the core, it's about choosing self first. That's what being authentic is. And we have not been taught that in religion. Give the shirt off your back, and then you end up being cold. And then who's really, it should be at your cost kind of thing. And really, it's the whole analogy of when they tell you on the airplane that in case of emergency, you put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And then when you're full and overflowing is when you can start helping others. So how do you do that? How do you live authentically? And that's where the integrity comes in. Because if we are saying yes when we really want to say no, because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, because we feel responsible for someone, because it's expected of us, because we want to be liked and loved, then validated, then that's not being authentic. If you really don't want to do something and you're saying yes because you're expected to say yes, well, that's not being in integrity. And the universe is going to register that, and then you're going to bring density into your field, and that's how dis-ease starts. We all have those cells in our body, but what's going to activate them? And that is fear. And if you're doing something that you don't want to really do, then you start feeling resentful, and resentment starts to fester and create toxins and then disease, because we have an understanding that we're so much more than the physical body. We have an emotional body, we have a mental body, and we have a spiritual body. And if the mental, emotional, and spiritual body are not in balance, then the physical body is going to suffer as a consequence.
That's correct. And so when we're looking at, saying yes when we really mean no, and then later on you think about, wow, if I, all this is happening because I gave up my, I gave up what I wanted to do for someone else. And then you feel like you're paying the price for sacrificing yourself.
And what is that really, Giovanna? That we've abandoned ourselves.
That's correct.
We've abandoned ourselves. So when we play out the abandonment story, right? When we attract the relationships that are not really a match for us, when we loathe the job that we wake up to every morning, when you're not living in an area that supports you, you're playing out the abandonment story. And when it really comes down to it, is because you're abandoning yourself somewhere. Just like like we're just saying, that saying yes when you really want to say no to something. Right.
So living authentically, when you're not living authentically, because it's exactly that. You are abandoning, or you're not listening to your inner voice that says, you know what, you should take the day off today. But instead you say, no, I got to go to work. And you go to work that day and the whole day goes wrong. Right. So not being authentic, meaning not listening to what your heart desires to do.
It's even more than that, because let's look at it the opposite. Like you do it, you take off, but you have so much guilt and shame for doing it. Correct. It's the same thing. So it's not so much about listening to your heart, but it's because, again, if once you start grounding into the body, you're going to make a deeper connection to your higher self, your future self, the you that's trying to leave you the breadcrumbs to follow, to stay in alignment to the successful timeline. And if you just, it's not so much in here, because we first have to learn how to trust what's in here. But that's all about grounding into the body and making this deeper connection to our higher self, our Godhead self, the self that knows from the bigger picture of what we need to do to stay in alignment. Then we're going to have more peace. It's not just about, surviving this human experience, is about thriving it. And then you'll be in the flow with this, this GPS, so to speak, that you can trust.
Yes, yes. But we're not taught to do that. All fairness. I mean, until I had my wake-up call, right? I never knew that, putting myself first to me was, considered selfish, right?
That's where the distortion is. That's where the hijacking is in religion. Think about it. Religion was created to help us make the higher choices, and somewhere down the line, they controlled us with fear that it's selfish to choose yourself first.
Correct.
And women especially.
Of course. And I do believe that a lot of the suffering is because, we, and I speak for myself, that I've neglected to really listen to my higher self. Because I never even learned I had a higher self, right? Until we kind of have this wake-up call to say, wait a minute, life shouldn't be this way, and until we question, why is life so difficult? Why do we have to go through this pain? Why can't I get to where I want to? Like, there are so many unanswered questions that if you continue to ask yourself, not anybody else, yourself, then eventually you get connected to the answers, because the question and the answers live within us. Right?
But it goes back to, you can ask yourself as much as you can and you can get the answers. But if you don't trust yourself, then you won't trust the guidance. So It goes back to grounding into the body, making that connection so that you can start trusting, because that's what the first and second chakras are all about.
Right, but you got to get connected to that energy that's always flowing within your body. The energy is there.
Know that it's there, but you have to make the effort. You can't just assume it's happening, and that's what we haven't been taught. That's the injustice.
Correct, and this is where, if you really want change, like we said before, you step into asking for change, asking the universe, okay, I'm ready for change. Show me what I need to do, because that's exactly what happened to me. It was like, okay, I went through my cancer journey, and I'm like, okay, you gave me a second chance. I'm ready to change.
Well, you needed unfortunately, sometimes what happens is they've been giving us the clues, but if we're not paying attention, then sometimes we need the 2x4s on the side of the head. You know?
And I agree.
And that's what happened. But you took it and you flipped it, and now you are on this journey to helping others and helping yourself at the same time. And I met your daughter, and just think about this. You are changing the patterns, because I bet this is in your family, ancestral, about putting everyone before yourself, right? I mean, not just you, in most families. And then once you can't unknow this, and you're changing it for your daughter, and then generations after, you're breaking that pattern.
Correct.
And that's how we're going to save, the planet, by saving ourselves.
That's right. It all comes with it all starts with us, right? We can't.
It all does.
It all starts. But I will say that you are going down a journey where you have to have more courage than fear, because when you're going through this change, right, you're going against what you've learned for, in my case, a little bit more than half a century, right? So I'm changing what I have been trained, conditioned to believe, to now believe something totally different. And as long as you're committed and you do something little every day to get closer to that, that's all the universe wants us to do, is just recognize that we can.
Yeah, and really what the universe wants you to do is make a choice, because they can course correct you, but you have to make a choice. And a lot of us are being complacent, that we're looking for answers outside of ourselves. Going to the psychics and the mediums is really, unfortunately, disempowering people, not gaining trust in themselves. So again, it comes down to the commitment to yourself on your spiritual path, of trying to get it right, to learn the karma and clear it and heal it and balance it, so that it no longer has a charge and controls us, which takes us out of the command position.
Correct. And I believe people are asking these questions nowadays, right? They're saying, like, the world, we see the world upside down. And it's like, okay, if I keep watching this news, like, they're getting smart. If I keep watching this news, it's feeding into fear. So I'm going to shut this TV off, right? And I'm going to choose to do something differently. Even that small little step, I believe, opens up people's mind to begin to say, there's something more out there that, I need for my own growth, because we're always looking to expand. The soul's always looking to grow and expand and gain experiences. But if we allow things like, the TV to stop us from, the fear, basically, because I truly believe that there's more fear than anything else when it comes to watching television.
Here's the thing. You wanna be informed, right? You want to be informed. The at least from our standpoint, is you want to approach it with neutrality, because what's going out on the macrocosmic level is a reflection of what's going on in the microcosmic, right? So we want to see what's going on. We want to see how the collective is choosing. But by seeing that and observing it from a place of neutrality, it doesn't have to be your reality. You don't have to let it trigger you into fear. That's the part of the mastery in all of this. It's not to hide our heads in the sand. But again, I agree with you. I don't have to watch everything, but I do want to stay informed, so that I understand if I need to take action, not from a place of fear, but from a place of self-preservation. And
I agree. But I think, I agree with that, but I also feel that a lot of people are depending on it. And because they haven't done the inner work to release the fear and connect to themselves,
well, that's why we're sharing this, right?
Right. They're going to grow. The fear will grow. You hear something on the news, you got to hear it in so many different ways for you to kind of like make a decision, right? I feel like if we need to know something, we're going to know it, even if the TV's off, because the neighbor's going to tell us. Oh,
you don't have to watch it every, hour. I mean, I'm in the car, I listen to 1010 Wins, or, try to get my news in New York that way. But every now and then I'm making dinner. I want to know what's happening. I have a few apps that kind of give me alerts, but it's not consuming me.
Right.
And again, it's to learn how to be neutral, to take the information in and kind of feel into the frequency of it, because there's a lot of distortion that's designed to trigger fear. And it's not just to, again, you can't run away from it. You kind of got to go into it so that you can start to, again, it's all about grounding into the body so that you can trust yourself. And in that, you're going to trust, if you're saying that you can trust that you're going to get the information you're going to get, that the universe is going to somehow get you to know what you need to know, then that same universe is also going to, you have to trust that you're going to be in the right place at the right time, and your needs are going to get met.
Yeah. I love that. The fact that we have to trust first ourselves, and then we can trust even the universe, right? Comes down to trusting ourselves. I will say that is a very hard concept for people to get, because, it's that disconnect. We're disconnected to ourselves. So how can we trust ourselves, right?
Well,
so
that's what I said. You have to ground. It's a spiritual hygiene every day. every day, not just when you're scared, but every morning, every night, throughout the day. Check in, breathe, connect with your body. Understand that I am safe. In this moment, I am safe. I am connected to something bigger than me. Call it God, call it Prime Creator, call it higher self, call it future self, call it whatever you want. But there's an energy out there that's orchestrating, and we're connected to it. And it's not outside of ourselves. God is not outside of ourselves. We have to transcend religion. That's, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but there is nothing that's outside of us. We are connected to that source.
That's right. And and understanding that little sentence you just said changes your whole world. I say we're the wave in the ocean. The
Yes.
wave is not disconnected from the ocean. We are a piece of the pie, a slice of the pizza pie, right? We can make so many analogies to help us understand that we come from a bigger piece, and it's never disconnected. The other day I was teaching someone the difference between a soul and your spirit. There is a difference between the two. The soul is what has the traumas, has the fears, has your experiences that you've been through that needs the healing. Your spirit, to me, is what's guiding you, what's staying connected.
Well, can I add a little something to that?
Sure.
So you're calling it spirit. Some people call it source.
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So what people have to understand, that there are aspects of ourselves, there are source aspects of ourselves that don't want us to grow, that want to keep us stuck. And so I would just add to that, to align with the highest spirit source,
Whatever you want to call it.
whatever you want to call it, that's
Universe.
at the Godhead, the one that's at the penthouse level, that sees the big picture view of you aligning with a successful timeline, whatever that is.
Sure.
So that you're only following those breadcrumbs, because we understand that there are multiple timelines we can be choosing, and every choice and decision we make aligns you with a timeline, right?
Yes.
And so we said at the beginning of the show that we want to show up as our highest potential, which means we want to align with our highest potential timeline. And there's only one of those highest potential timelines, right? And so we only want to follow the guidance from that spirit source energy, whatever you want to call it, so that we don't get caught on a parallel timeline that is not going to allow us to meet that, right?
Yeah. And I believe when we're not in alignment with that is kind of like when we're facing hardship.
Well, sometimes again, the universe is always conspiring in our favor, right? It's never trying to punish us. But again, if you're not paying attention, they will hit you on the side of the head with a 2x4. And that can feel like a hardship. That can feel like the rug being pulled out from underneath you. I mean, 9/11, 9/11 is a perfect example of that was divinely orchestrated, whatever you want to think about. But as a city, New York, the whole world came together, right? It sparked like, this is bigger than any one of our little problems, right? We have to unite as like, we all came together, and that raises the vibration of the collective. That's what that does. And so what again, we have to be really careful of what we're judging as negative or positive or good or bad. It's all for the richness of the experience, and the universe is always conspiring in our favor. But what you said before is the whole point of this, is that we have to ask, because we're in a free will universe. You have to ask for help. You have to ask. There's very little intervention that our higher selves can do unless we ask.
I know. And that, what, we do have problems in asking and in saying I'm sorry. Those are two areas of life that, when I went into this work, I know why, and I understand that, we are, made to we are programmed, the right word, like Dr. Bruce Lipton says, we are programmed to think that we must do everything ourselves. And so when we can let go of that and say, no, we can ask for help, whether it is from the higher power or our next door neighbor, because, we can receive help in so many ways. I mean, today I called someone up on a different note, and we stayed on the phone for like 2 hours because she had to give me information that, I needed to have for my own growth. Right. But there was again, letting go and understanding that we can receive the help that we need. And it's there, it's always there.
Yeah.
Is a mind shift, right? Is really shifting the way we're taught. And, 95% of what we do every day is based on our thinking of what we've been trained to think. And we have to start thinking a little bit differently in order to get where we're meant to go.
And you know how that's happening?
Tell me.
What's happening as the pineal and pituitary gland are decalcifying, because we've been stuck in the ego mind, right? That's just what we've been operating from fear. So as this decalcifies, it's activating the thymus gland, where the upper heart or the galactic heart. And this is where our new mind center is. This is where our knowing is going to be. And this is why it's so important to ground into the body, so that we can activate all of this. All of our spiritual DNA is coming online, so that we can activate and become more of who we are meant to be.
Yes, I love that. Another person that I follow is Greg Braden. We talk about the mind and heart coherence, right? And when they're talking to each other and they're talking the same language, we also can, create. We're co-creators, right? Everything on this earth has been co-created. So in order to achieve what we want in life, we need to have that coherence, not just the ego going in one direction and your heart going in the opposite direction, but when the two together meet, I believe we have also the power to change and go in the direction.
Well, it's when the ego is balanced, right? So we can be creator and destroyer, but not when the ego's not in balance. It's only when we heal the ego, when we kick it from being in the driver's seat into the back, and we get into the driver's seat. That's when there's coherence in the mind and the heart. It has to happen that way. And it's a process. And you said before that it's hard for many. And yes, it takes tenacity. It takes courage. It takes the will to want it, and the trust that you can do it. And but it's a journey. It's a journey. But I will say, once you know what it feels like, you can't unknow it. And I've never met anyone that chose to go back to the other way. So once you start operating from this place of being in the command position, it more peace, more self-confidence, more joy, and more love. And then that, if everyone would just work on themselves instead of pointing fingers and blaming of why the world is the way it is, we will heal a planet.
Absolutely. I like I said, and you mentioned it as well, we have to look at ourselves. The change begins with us.
That's right.
Right. And it's inner work. So let's talk about this inner work, because a lot of people, will do inner work when I feel like they exhausted all the outside sources to help them. Right. So then they turn within finally. So when we say inner work, what does that mean for you?
So probably most people would understand about doing the shadow work, right? So when you think about what karma is, karma is not just about being a good person and good things happening to you or vice versa. Karma is really the memories that you've accumulated, that you've attached emotion to. And that gets locked in the chakra system. But the chakra system has been dumbed down for this human experience. So they're nipped and they're conical or trumpet shape. But when you return the chakra system back to its multidimensional state, when you're doing the shadow work, when you're clearing when you're taking the charge out of the emotion that you've attached to the memories, they no longer control you. So let's say you have abandonment story. We talked about that before. So let's say you had a mother that was emotionally unavailable, for instance. Then you're going to attract those storylines to you until you heal it in yourself. But in this density, with all this fear, it's really hard to do that inner work. But once your chakra system is liberated from that dumbing down process, then it just it's like ripping off the Band-Aid. You're just going to clear it without having to go back to the story. You keep the memory. Yes, you had a mother that was emotionally unavailable. I take responsibility for that because as we spoke before, we pulled that in, right? We created that reality for ourselves because there was something we needed to learn. But once you're able to take the charge out of the emotion to that experience, then it no longer controls you, and that's how you heal it. And you heal it because, let's say, so and so reminds you of your mother, and you're just not even triggered by that person anymore. And so that's how we're going to do the inner work going forward. Therapy is going to change because we don't have to revisit the stories anymore. Once you understand that it's just the emotion, the charge in the emotion that we need to neutralize, then it no longer has power over us. And it's not that simple of just commanding it. It's work.
Right.
And that's where, the work that I do, the Marconics, and why I'm so passionate about it is because it works without having to go back to the story. Because once you clear the density, the karma, the miasma, the misfirings, the distortions, the negative architecture, all of this is going on in the light body. But once you can heal that, then the inner work can be done. Then you feel lighter and brighter. Then you're going to start responding to life instead of reacting to life.
Right, right. It's shifting the perception as well of the situations that, trigger you, right? I mean, I know for myself, like when I first got the call that I had breast cancer, like that was an emotional impact, that was like, somebody stabbed me in the heart. But now when I went and did this work, I realized that no, that was just something that I needed to
The catalyst.
right. And look at it from a different perspective. Like, you know what? I actually got I got a chance to go and fix this problem, right? I got a chance to go take care of it because there's some people who, dropped dead of a heart attack, never even got a chance to go to the doctor to get checked. But I actually got the chance to go get help and now be here to talk about it and to say, okay, how it changed my life, and I'm impacting others to feel the same way, right? So that experience or that charge that was a negative energy in my body has transformed to be more like a light for others.
That's right. And soon, you won't even label it as negative or, again, it's density.
Right.
It's
Right.
just density that what are we doing here as we're doing the inner work? We're converting carbon into crystalline, and that takes pressure and that takes heat and it can feel really uncomfortable. And, and that's growth. That's what, this ascension is all about, raising your consciousness, seeing things from a higher perspective, and just as far as not judging it as being negative or positive, but it's for the richness of the experience of you as a soul.
Yeah,
right.
It's a whole different look, a different way of looking at it for
That's
sure.
right.
And when you look at that one experience that way, now you see all your experiences that way.
Right. You can't unsee it. Exactly.
Yes, and it brings you into that path of going, now I get it. I think it was Steve Jobs said, you can connect the dots going back, but you can't connect the dots going forward. So, and it's so true, because when you connect the dots going back, you're like, now I do get it, why that was hard for me or what I had to learn from that. Because, now I actually look at back and I go, that was an experience that I had to learn in order to transcend that lower density mindset.
Now let's take that concept, and if you start trusting yourself, right, grounding into the body, then you can live in the now moment and not worry about the future dots. Just stay in the now moment, understand that you're going to know what your next step is, what your next response is, so that you can move forward trusting that you are being guided.
So there's what just came to mind as you said that. There's a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, very famous book, right? And after I read that book, I actually took one of his course called The Teacher of Presence, because I wanted to learn really how to stay, how to teach and how to stay in the present moment. Because the truth of the matter is the past is gone. If we take an hour, what is it, that hourglass, right? It's like we see the sand coming down and we're like, okay, whatever's down here, it's the past and that's gone. Whatever's up here is the future. You really don't know what's coming. All you really have is right in the middle, right? Right in the middle.
Neutrality. That's why we say stay in neutrality and trust in yourself through your connection to you at your own Godhead.
And and again, let's go back to that trusting thing, because once we have that, I think we have the answer to life. But trusting in the unseen comes from a knowing that you are part of that, you are that wave that is part of the ocean, or you are connected to source and everything that is, and that the universe will give you the information that you need in order to get to the next step.
Right. But you need to be paying attention.
So paying attention means getting still, getting quiet, taking time for yourself, getting away from the noise. Can we elaborate on that?
Grounding into the body so you deepen that connection so that you'll hear it.
And what do you mean by grounding into the body? Let's get very clear.
Okay, so the root chakra, the root chakra is right where the legs meet the body. That's where the root chakra, that's the first chakra. Second chakra is 2 inches below the navel. Third chakra is in the solar plexus where the diaphragm is, right? And so when we're grounding, we need to ground there. So we do an upside down delta mudra. And just bring it down to, your thumbs kind of meet at the belly button, and then the apex is at the bottom. And then you just bring in the breath. And as you're inhaling on the exhaling, for me anyway, I feel the breath pulling in through my light body, and I actually feel it grounding into my root where my legs meet my body. And I feel that. And then I just intend that my higher self is going to anchor me wherever is safe and appropriate for me. And that's what we mean about grounding, not just by lip surface. Can't be lip service in the sense that you can't just say, oh, okay, I'm grounding into my body. You have to feel what that feels like. And it takes practice. People don't even know what it feels like.
Right. And I don't, again, this is part of maybe a meditation in the morning, or even you do it once or twice a day.
Not even a meditation. You wake up, you're in bed, ground into your body. Put your feet on the floor, sit on the bed, and feel the floor underneath you, feel the bed underneath you, and then breathe into your body and feel it. You feel it. It just connects to that
technique and breathing, right? You said belly out
through, right? Just inhale through the nose, and the stomach descends, and then exhale through the mouth, and then feel it's like tentacles almost, but they're energetic, and you feel them connecting to your root. Feel connected into your body. That's what that means.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are
get it.
With that alarm, go dee, 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 dee. They get up out of bed and they're rushing to go get a cup of coffee. They're waking up the kids. Like there is no time for
do that. It on the toilet. Do it on the toilet. I don't care where you do it. Right. Just connect to yourself. And then what I always do in my spiritual hygiene every day after I connect, and I wait, before I get up, is I then connect to because when we first wake up is when we're closest to our higher self, because we just came back from dream state, where the consciousness left the body. And so we're kind of vibrating kind of high. And so I take that extra moment and I ask, in my connection to my higher self, is there any messages, anything I need to know for the day? Sometimes it's as simple as don't forget to call so-and-so for their birthday. Sometimes it's don't drink coffee. Sometimes it's whatever, I get my strongest messages, in that space between before I start my day.
Beautiful. And that kind of sets your day, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I feel I'm not walking, as lonely as it can feel, I am not walking this path alone.
Yeah. And it definitely creates the alignment of, like you said before, we're not reacting to life, we're responding.
That's
right? Because we know the more we have a spiritual practice, whatever that may be, because spiritual hygiene is not something, practice hygiene, when it's the same thing. If you are committed to it, then you will see your life change.
You will. And my generation anyway, of light workers, we were taught, oh, we're above spiritual hygiene. That's coming from fear. No, it's not. It's about self-preservation. It's about keeping yourself in the command position of you are, as a sovereign being, you are creating or co-creating your reality. But if you're disconnected from your source, then who's creating your reality? An ego out of balance. That's what's creating your reality, because it's you're operating from fear and not love.
I love that. So stepping into, and this energy, what do you call this energy that keeps you in balance?
What do I call this energy? I'm going to call it Marconics. And because Marconics is really us at the future point that's coming back through space and time to help us remember who we really are and why we are here, and what are you talk about, your life purpose, but there's a soul purpose. And we are here to assist the planet in her ascension, first and foremost. And now we have the opportunity to ascend with the planet, which has never been done in all the history of the universe. So this energy that keeps me in this state of balance is me coming back through space and time to help me remember who I am, that I am so much more than I was led to believe.
Right. And that's how you have the power. We have control over really what happens to our life based upon staying connected to this source energy.
That's correct. That's how we're co-creating. But you said at the beginning, your highest potential reality. There's a lot of timelines. There's a lot of realities you can be creating here. But which one is, your highest potential?
So what are the smaller shifts that people can make? I mean, I know you spoke about, getting grounded, but, let's say they're at work and it's crazy and they're stressed and, there's so many things going on in their mind. What is a small thing that they can do to
ground into the body? Go to the bathroom and ground into your body and just remind yourself that you're connected, and that if you're being triggered by the chaos, the craziness at work, that take that moment, eat a piece of dark chocolate to ground you. Sometimes a little caffeine can help ground you if you're having trouble grounding, but use the breath. Remind yourself that this too shall pass, and not let the chaos pull you out of balance. Right?
I love that because everything is temporary, right?
Everything, right? And because what happens is you allow that to spiral you, that's going to create the next reality, right? The next thought, the next feeling, the next person that comes to your desk asking for something or whatever that's happening at work. And then before you know it, you spiraled out. But if you can catch yourself in that moment and course correct and say, no, that's from fear. I'm not gonna get angry. I'm not gonna get frustrated. I'm not gonna get resentful. I'm choosing love. I'm choosing me. And that will course correct you. And before you know it, you've spiraled right up. And then you can help change that for someone else, because through entrainment, that's how this is happening. You're operating from a higher place. Someone comes into your field and feels good, right? That's how I felt about you with all that was going on, and I added to your frustration. I know before day, but you kept it calm, and then that kept me calm, and that's how we're helping others. And again, you can be creator and destroyer when ego is in balance, when you feel an injustice, when you feel that, and I spoke my truth with you, and you met me. We met, right? We didn't clash. We met and we found the solutions. And that's what it's all about, because we're both operating from that higher state of consciousness.
Right. I love that. And, today I was listening to, we had the Neil Donald Walsh as the keynote speaker. And today I actually was coming into the office and I heard him say something about the universe only understands yes. So, and I kept hearing what he was saying. And he said, no matter what you're thinking about, the universe is going to grant that to you. So whether you're thinking from the ego or from the heart space, it's going to say yes. And so I want to connect it to, what we're learning here, what we're talking about here, is that the understanding that our thinking, our thoughts can take us down a spiral negative, location, let's say, into the dark space. Getting grounded, getting connected to our inner self is the only way out.
The only way out is in.
Isn't that amazing?
And we have to feel, we're here to be human. So we have to feel the feels. We can't keep stuffing them. We have to let them come up. But we can also understand that we're shining light on it so that it can be transmuted into the higher realms. That's what's happening here, is we're transmuting. So when I said before that we're here to assist the planet, because we put all this miasma in her, we put all this negativity, the fear, in the core of her planet, and she's going up, right? She's ascending. She needs to purge, like cutting those ballasts off the hot air balloon. And we're being used as these little mini volcanoes. So it's coming up through the chakra system to be transmuted. And so we are not only serving the planet, but we're serving ourselves. We're healing ourselves by healing the planet. We're in this symbiotic relationship with each other. And then it gets even better, because then as we purge and we get lighter and brighter, we then become a vibrational match to these new energies that are now hitting the planet's surface, that are intelligently designed to activate our dormant DNA. And when you're a match, you can anchor them into the grid lines of this new earth that we're co-creating, right? We're decomposing the old and creating something new. And then this good juju is put into the grid lines for then the next generation and the next generation that are going to be the architects of these new worlds. So that's what's happening here.
Right. And letting it happen and get grounded is essential.
Right. Without fear. Understand that everything is being orchestrated. It's all coming up. That's not working. We have to shine light so it can also transmute. So watching the news, understand that it's because as the collective is choosing. But, as Neil was explaining, is that, this great divide, there's this bifurcation of time, and there's a version of the planet that's spiraling out, and then there's a organic version of the planet that's spiraling up and out, this way.
More authentic, more connection.
More organic, more in integrity, authenticity. That's why those are the buzzwords. If you want to create the world you want to see, then you have to live your truth in that alignment of integrity and being authentic.
Yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So we're going to take it down for a landing. It kind of like, I just had a vision right now of everyone just being together as one, like what he said, right? We are one. And this is what we do by teaching this kind of work, is really bringing out the truth that we are part of the whole. We're not separate from the whole. We're not separate from the source. We're part of the source. No matter how you want to look at it, how you want to cut it and slice it, there's something that is within us that has been planted there from forever.
That's
and if
right.
we stay connected to that,
well, first we have to wake it up.
First, we have to wake it up, right? But it doesn't have to be, you don't have to wake it up from suffering. That's really the message I want to send. You can wake it up just by saying, I'm ready for change. I need to be the change that
suffering is optional. But that goes back to what you said before, of feeling that choosing self first is selfish. There's a lot of guilt and shame around this. Right. And so a lot of people I have found through my clients that they equate any type of success with suffering, and that has to stop. It's not something we have to earn. It's something that you vibrate to. It's an alignment. You choose it in integrity with the alignment, in being authentic. And then it's just you're going to magnetize it because that's what you're vibrating out.
Beautiful. Absolutely. I love it. Well, thank you so much. We have to take it down for a landing. How can people get in contact with you?
Yes. Well, come to the website, marconics.com. Visit the teachers. We're international. We're across the United States. We're in Europe. We're in Canada and Japan. Wealth of information there. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all the rest. Just type in my name. You can find me.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host. This is Giovanna Tardarone, Sparking Change with Gigi. Until next time, see you later. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Robin. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.